In Africa, more than 300 million people rely on the Nile River. The Nile River basin contains over 10% of Africa's landmass, and including 11 countries: Ethiopia, Sudan, South Sudan, Egypt, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, Burundi, the DRC, Eritrea, and Kenya. And if you take account into how much more of the fresh water from the Nile is sold to other parts of Africa, then the amount of people that rely on the Nile River is upwards towards a billion people. The Nile River isn't just a source of fresh drinking water. It is also a source to move goods, to provide services to people, and is still the most efficient way of travel in the region, considering that these places aren't yet well connected through vast highway systems, much like America. With the speculation of climate change and many of these populations growing and becoming urban epicenters, it isn't a shock to anyone that the geopolitics around the Nile River is becoming more and more contentious, especially with countries like Ethiopia and Egypt continuing to build hydroelectric dams on the river as a way to provide their people with more power, but also as a way to exert more influence and dominance over the region, and especially the Nile, which is the epicenter of the region. As tensions boil between Ethiopia and Egypt, Ethiopia in 2020 took a further step and deployed anti-aircraft missiles along their dam. Some view this as a positive, as Africa is becoming more and more industrialized and becoming more like the New World. But in another way you can look at it is and see and predict on how wars of the future are going to be fought over resources within the continent of Africa. The majority of Egypt's population lives along the Nile River basin, and you could see how the population density is broken down. During the 19th and 20th centuries, many of the wars in Europe were fought along the lines of territorial conquest. The leaders of these countries were able to realize that whoever controlled the most resources had the biggest upper hand when it came to negotiations, border disputes, and overall control on industry throughout the whole region. With all these countries still being infants on the world global stage, it'll only be a matter of time before each and every leader in each of the individual countries is racing to gather up as many resources as he possibly can to, in principle, to benefit his own people, but also taking away from the region, because if each country races to gather up as much water from the Nile as they possibly can, it'll only accelerate the rate in which the Nile River is drying up, and only accelerate in which climate change is affecting the whole entire region. And when you take that all into account, you could see how potentially in the future all of this could boil over once you start taking into account how different ethnically, religiously, racially, and just overall the mindset of the people in these countries is just different from one another. And so you could see how this could invite a lot of future conflict, especially when a lot of the slower developing countries haven't yet reached this stage to where they need the excess power. And when you start seeing a lot of these other countries rising and going to grab for more and more resources, there will be more and more alliances, more and more agreements built between several other countries that will be going against the interest of other countries throughout the region. And so thank you for watching. Continue to follow me. I will be updating you on the current situations going on throughout the whole region.